The Confederates were also fighting to protect the most pernicious institution ever to mar this country, slavery. When General Wadsworth and the men and boys of Geneseo marched out to stop the Confederacy, they and their comrades succeeded. And the blot of slavery will never again disgrace our country. Human beings will never be bought and sold like cattle in America again. World War II saw an external threat, that of Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan and their allies. By the time these people marched off in 1941 to confront that, democracy was literally on its heels. It was almost an extinct animal. They reversed that. And today, the blot of Nazism, Imperial Japanese hegemony, is no more. World War I in Korea was slightly different because our people marched off to protect the freedoms of others. In the case of World War I, it was to protect the democracies of Western Europe against Japanese or German imperialism. In Korea, again, our people saved a nascent democracy from probably the worst possible kind of communist totalitarianism, that of North Korea. That effort on the part of the North Koreans was abetted and aided by the Red Chinese and by the Soviet Union. They stopped that. That brings us to Vietnam. I know some of you, maybe all of you, saw the Ken Burns documentary last year on Vietnam. If you saw that, you might come away from it thinking that we spent billions of dollars and the precious lives of the people on that memorial for nothing. Well, I don't see it that way, and I'll tell you why. In 1991, when the Soviet Union had collapsed into the dustbin of history, there arose a cottage industry of seminars and panel discussions featuring people from both sides of the Cold War, both sides of the Iron Curtain. And in one of those panels, I happened to be seated next to a retired former Soviet general officer who had served as an advisor to North Vietnam and then served as a commander in Afghanistan. And I asked him to give us his views on the American experience in Vietnam as opposed to the Soviet experience in Afghanistan. And what he said actually made a profound impact on me and the way I think about Vietnam. He said, you know, when Saigon fell in 1975, I and my comrades thought that the Cold War had reached its turning point and that we were going to win. You had spent billions of dollars and thousands of lives in fighting us hard in that combat. We thought that you were too tired, too enervated, too discouraged to go on. Imagine our surprise and horror less than 5 years later when some of the same people who had been fighting us in Vietnam came after us when we had made our invasion of Afghanistan to install a Soviet communist regime there. You sent advisors, you sent trainers, you sent equippers. And you were doing to us the same thing that we did to you in Vietnam, only you were doing it better. And as our revolutions, our communist-inspired revolutions in the rest of Southeast Asia, in Africa, and in Latin America started to wither and dry on the vine, That's when we began to believe that we were on the wrong side of history. So those of you who have relatives on that wall who fought in Vietnam, don't let anyone tell you that their sacrifice was in vain. And I say the same thing to you Blue Devils who went to Vietnam and returned. Today, because of what these people on that wall did, we have a Europe that's teeming with democracy and strongly allied with the United States. Japan and South Korea are beacons of freedom in the South Pacific. The Cold War is over, and those of you high school students and middle school students, unlike us when we were teenagers, don't have to worry that when you go to bed at night, a civil war, a superpower conflict may arise, you might not wake up in the morning. You're free from that. You can thank them. I'm going to wrap it up here and let you go back to enjoy this beautiful Memorial Day and hopefully the rest of a great summer. But as you do, I would ask you to remember one thing. For these people, there will be no boat rides. There will be no family picnics. There will be no church softball games. But as long as people like you gather here at events like this, they will always live in our hearts and in our memories. Thank you very much. God bless the Geneseo Blue Devils, and God bless America.